Welcome to the Total Country Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Total Country Podcast. My name's Kevin, and thanks for joining me today. This week I'm giving you the chance to hear an interview I recorded live on the 7th of August as part of the Total Country Podcast Bluebird Cafe celebration event, which was on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. If you want to go check it out visually, it's still available on Facebook and Twitter. And on the night I had live performances from artists such as Lauren Jenkins, Gary Quinn, Harriet Rose and Tony Arata. The night culminated in an interview with COO/GM of the Bluebird Cafe, Erika Wollam Nichols, who you may have heard on a previous episode, and songwriting legend Tony Arata, who you may know for writing Garth Brooks' classic The Dance. But he's also written for many others, including Dolly Parton, Emmylou Harris and Randy Travis. He's a stalwart of the Bluebird Cafe and is a huge advocate for up-and-coming songwriters. The interview with Erika and Tony was so good and so interesting, I wanted to give my listeners of the podcast a chance to hear it, pretty much in full. So I need a little bit more of your time for this episode, but I promise it's worth it. I put the event on in conjunction with the Bluebird Cafe to celebrate the UK release of the Bluebird documentary film, which is a must-see. You'll hear us talking about it in the interview, you'll also hear some clips of the film, and a few snippets of Tony performing live from the night, as well as a bunch of great anecdotes from both Erika and Tony. So here we go. This one kind of speaks for itself. I've said enough. You'll love this. From the Total Country Podcast, Bluebird Cafe Celebration, my interview with Erika Wollam Nichols and Tony Arata. Firstly, thanks for taking the time out this afternoon. How are you both doing?
A1. How about you?
I'm just glad to be here. Well, actually, I'm here. I'm still in my house, but I'm glad to be with y'all. Just glad to see some friendly faces.
Now, I've got to get this out there before I forget, Erika. When you came on the podcast, it was going really well. Like, we were chatting really well. I think it was about half an hour in, and then you just stopped halfway through and went, am I being too verbose? So, I mean,
That's
you
the
weren't.
First time I've said that.
I feel like it's because you were talking to, I don't know, it's because you were talking to a Brit that you got concerned, or...
You know, I'm half English myself. My mum was from London.
And you've got family in Bognor, haven't you?
Well, that's where my grandparents' house was, but I don't have any family there anymore. Most of my family is in Lancashire. And, yeah, just around.
I want to keep this interview really upbeat and make sure we don't get too drugged down by the COVID thing and the fact that venues aren't open and things. But how have you both been doing during these times? So, Tony, how have you been keeping busy? And Erika, how have you been, going day by day with the Bluebird?
Kick it, Tony. You start.
Well, it's been very strange for me. I thoroughly enjoy going out and playing, not only at the Bluebird, but over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been out playing a whole bunch. So that just absolutely got, done in with. I haven't been anywhere since March. Matter of fact, the last time I played anywhere, I was with Erika. We were over in Berlin, and that was when it all went south. And we got home, and so we've been spending a lot of time doing chores around the house. To be honest with you, Kevin, I found out one thing real quick. I should have a bigger skill set because if I'm not playing music, there's not a whole lot else I can do. But
can you not do the DIY and all that kind of things?
Oh my gosh, no. This is the only tool I know how to operate, which is a phone. I can call somebody who knows how to do things, but that's about it. But,
how have you been, Erika?
Well, we're just trying as hard as we can to keep the Bluebird enthused and energized despite the closure. And really not able to predict when we might be able to reopen. It's the craziest, unpredictable sort of situation, and I'm not a big fan of not being able to make a plan. So that's been hard. Yeah.
You mentioned it, Tony, that you were both in, I think it was Berlin, but didn't you fly into London and then not even get past passport control or something, and then you were back?
I can't tell you. I've played in Ireland before, and then getting to go to Amsterdam and to Berlin, and I was so looking forward to coming to London. My wife and I were just that's on our bucket list. We haven't made it, so we got to see the better part of Heathrow. We saw that, and I thought I'd walked home, to be honest with you. But no, I want very badly to come back and visit your beautiful country, and I'll look forward to doing that. I truly will.
We're gonna have to have that as a promise, because I was looking forward to seeing you. So many people were looking forward to seeing you. I know Roy Smith, who I believe you know. I was talking to him earlier, and he was really looking forward to seeing you. So you've got to come back.
There's a young lady that even wrote me before I came over there, who I saw the last time I was in. Where did I see? I played a show in Belfast, and saw her there. And her name is Norma Simpson, and she has corresponded with me and my family throughout the years. And I hope she's doing well. And I'm sorry I missed her, and I'll hope to get to see her on the next trip. I sure will.
Hopefully she's watching. So, country music is all about friendships and stories. How long have you two known each other? That long.
It's been a long time. I've been a fixture at the Bluebird. Well, I guess as long as you have, Erika. I got here. We moved here in 1986, so I started hanging out there right around that time. And so, when were you here, Erika?
I started at the club in '84.
Oh.
And then worked all the way through when I graduated in '88, and then back again in '91. So that's a long time.
That is a long time. So
I want to say one thing real quick, Kevin, is that's not unusual. I have so many friends that I've known for so long at the Bluebird.
Yeah.
That's apart from missing the performing and getting to play for a live audience is it's such a family environment over there that you get to know people on a completely different level than you do this in this club and you do that. It's more about just it really is. It's an extension of family, and I miss that aspect of it as well. I look forward to reacquainting myself with some of the.
That is so true. I was telling some folks who were looking at the club for a corporate event, and they were asking what made it so special. And, beyond the quiet and the songs and everything else, I'm like, when the writers come in the back door, they hug everybody because we all know each other. It's not as if you're going into a room with staff. It's like Tony says, you're going into, and it's family and friends, and whether they're your server or your door person or the bus person or, somebody who's less important like me. Then it really is like, we're all happy to see each other and we get to be together.
Yeah. And you said before, Tony, that you become a part of the furniture at the Bluebird. So how important is it for Erika to be at the helm and have her to be able to trust that she's going to steer the ship in the right way?
Oh, absolutely. And, she learned from the best, who was Amy Kurland, who has actually started the place. And so it's in good hands. I know that. And I know Erika's ready to get back to it, and we all are. And we'll just, we'll be there when called, I hope. I hope they'll call. Well, never mind, Kevin. They will call me because I still have a tab outstanding at the I'm on the hook. I've got to go back to work just to pay that off. So
it's long.
Oh, you did? Well, thank you, Erika. Thank you.
And Erika, I know when we spoke before, I asked you if you could really comprehend sort of the importance of the venue in sort of music history and with songwriters, and you kind of said you couldn't. Tony, do you understand the importance of the venue?
Yes. I have to share my first recollection of the place was I mentioned we had just moved here in 1986, and we wandered. Our apartment wound up being just right up at the top of the hill, not very far from the Bluebird, and we wandered down one night just to see what the competition was. I mean, you've just moved here to be a songwriter. It seems like you should have done the reconnaissance before you got here. We did after the fact. And as it turns out, I'm very glad. We walked in, and the very first song that I ever heard in Nashville was The Gambler.
Oh, wow, okay.
Don Schlitz singing that. It was Tom Schuyler and Fred Knobloch and Paul Overstreet. And everything they were playing was on the radio at the time. Everything was a hit and big. And so I guess that's when it really hit me where we had moved. Savannah, Georgia, where I'm from, is a absolutely lovely town, but it doesn't have an original music experience quite like you would ever find in Nashville.
Yeah.
So to be somewhere where you were going to get in trouble if you weren't playing original music was a whole new concept to me. And I've seen over the years, I've met so many people there and still am friends with them to this day. So it's almost like going to college, but you just never graduate. You walk in the place and invariably you're inspired by what you hear.
Nice.
So it was a wonderful move for us. It truly was. And a wonderful find.
Yeah. Well, we'll get on to, the benefits you had from it in a minute, but we've got a question from Linda. I mean, this might be for you, Erika, and I don't know if you'll know it, but so we've got, who was the very first person to sing at the Bluebird and what was the song? Now, when the Bluebird opened, it was just all kinds of music, wasn't it? So, I mean, it could have been a rock band or something, I assume.
It was Jay Patton, who is a saxophone player, the band leader for Crystal Nail. And Jay's band he played June 4th and June 5th, 1982, and has played every year to celebrate the Bluebird's birthday for 38 years. This year we had to do it virtually on Instagram. We couldn't have the whole band. We just had Jay and Tony, the bass player in his band, Tony Seaholster. But all that to say that it was the Jay Patton band. I don't know who hit the first note, but I can bet it was Jay with his saxophone that kicked everything off.
You did. I saw that. You were dancing in the background on the video with Amy, weren't you? I saw that. Natural dancer.
Right.
So, Erika, for those that don't know, talk to me about the journey that you went on for your position today, because you've come back and left a few times, and
people come back and leave quite a bit. The Bluebird. We always say to people, "You're never really gone." No, I started as a server when I went to Belmont, and worked lunches to begin with, and would serve Chet Atkins and Minnie Pearl and folks like that, as well as the ladies who lunch from next door at the hair salon. And just kind of, gradually moved into a position where I was waiting tables at night. Then I was bartending. And I really thought, when I graduated, I really thought I was going to get a PhD in philosophy. And I was done with working in Nashville. But in typical Bluebird and Nashville fashion, I came back to Nashville and took a job booking a large festival. And then it kind of just spiraled from there. I went from there to taking over running the Tin Pan South Festival for NSAI, and then to the Country Music Hall of Fame, and then back to NSAI, where I was working and getting a master's degree when Amy came to me and told me she wanted to retire. And what did I think about the Songwriters Association taking over to protect the Bluebird and keep it always the way that it was? And I thought, this is great. I can book the Bluebird and still work on all my art. It's amazing. And that all changed. So now instead of working 3 days a week, I work 7.
And Tony, talk to me about your journey into songwriting.
I come from a big family, and all my siblings are much older than I am. And when they left or got married, went to college or got married, they left me with all their albums. This is back in the day, and I was probably 13 or 14, we were living on Tybee Island at that time, right outside Savannah. And I remember just spending all my time looking at, listening to and reading great lyrics. And I think I had some form of an epiphany when I realized that the people singing those songs didn't necessarily write them. And I know that doesn't seem like much of a stretch, but it was to a 13-year-old kid. I mean, I realized that, these songs had to come from somewhere. I fell in love with the written word, and I decided that it's a free country. If you wanted to write a song, you could. So I started writing probably when I was about 14 or 15. Nothing that fortunately ever saw the light of day, or else we would. But I've always been in love with lyrics. I come from, as I said, Savannah, Georgia. Probably one of the greatest lyricists of all time is also from Savannah. Johnny Mercer is from there. And so I grew up under the shadow of that. And then Georgia has such a rich history of so many great, what Erika mentioned, Chet is from Georgia, and Otis Redding. And it's a very diverse community. And I played all through college, as my GPA would attest. And I wound up playing in bands and trying to squeeze in as many original songs as I possibly could. And my journey to Nashville is owed in great part, if not in all, for all reasons, to my wife, Jamie. I literally got here because she gave our apartment away in Savannah and basically called my hand, Kevin, and said, I think her words were, we can be broke anywhere. So we might as well go be broke somewhere where something might actually happen. So in 86, we moved here with no other plan than that. And I literally can't imagine my life any different than, and I worked other jobs other than, I didn't always make my living as a songwriter, but I've always tell people I would have written the same amount of songs regardless. It's just what I've always enjoyed doing since I was a young man. And I'm very grateful to have been able to have earned a living in this wonderful industry.
And then
I thoroughly enjoy it. No, I just so enjoy going out and hearing. I don't think I really realized until we moved to Nashville. I'd always said songs they don't come from the radio. They come from people. And you go out and it never fails. It just absolutely never fails. I'll walk out and I'll go, why in the world didn't I think of that? That is such a wonderfully simple thought. And so it's a very inspiring and a very humbling town. And as I said, I'm just very grateful that we wound up here. I'd like to say it was a circuitous journey, but it wasn't. This is the only place we've ever lived outside of Savannah.
And you met Garth Brooks an open mic night around that similar sort of time, didn't you? Is that right?
I did. Well, I actually, right after we moved here, I snuck in the back of another club here in town called Douglas Corner, and Garth was sitting on a stool at an open mic show. He had moved here the same time that Jamie and I had moved here. He and his wife Sandy had moved here the same time that Jamie and I had. Him from Oklahoma and us from Georgia. I went up and introduced myself, and I'm very grateful to say we've just been friends ever since. We were in the pursuit of the same thing, which is just trying to get somebody to notice something that we had composed. He always had aspirations to be an artist. I never did. But it was one of those things where I'd like to say it was all planned. If that were the case, you just do that every day. You go out and change your life every day, but it just doesn't work like that. But yeah, we met at an open mic show. And I will say this. He's the same guy I met that night. And that's the God's honest truth. So.
Are you still good friends?
We are, and we've both raised daughters together. You know, I mean, we've commiserated about the challenge that is, and, and the joy that is. And matter of fact, his oldest daughter and our oldest daughter were born one day apart. And,
wow.
Yeah, we were both at Baptist Hospital together. Totally different experiences, I can assure you. He was at the zenith of his career, and of course, nobody, good and bad, nobody knows the songwriters. And so we walked around the halls in complete anonymity. He had Tennessee State Troopers outside of his door because he wanted to try to get a picture of that. And so it's just one of those things where you come up, and we were both very fortunate in the way things turned out, but I don't really think of him other than as a friend, and that's enough these days, is just to say that somebody you knew and have grown up with kind of has remained true to who they were when you first met them, and he has.
Especially the level of fame and the venues he's played, it's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's one of those things. And what really bothers me, Kevin, is I'll watch him, and I mean, he'll do 10 nights in a row at a place. Like, I think the last time he played Bridgestone, it was like a 10-night run.
Yeah,
in Nashville, and he's only 5 years younger than I am. And you wouldn't know it, because about an hour into his concert, I was worn out, and he just like that over and over again. So he's much better, let's put it that way.
And the dance was like your first cut as well, wasn't it? I mean,
It was the first cut I ever had in Nashville. Matter of fact, it was the second song I wrote when we moved to Nashville, and it's one of those things where I played it at a open mic show at the Bluebird. Garth and I actually, this is an early show. We had worked our way up to doing the early shows at the Bluebird by then. And it was just one of those, like I said, I would like to say that I had it all planned out, but I didn't. Which, oddly enough, is what the song is about. And
yeah.
But when I played it and I came off stage and he said, "Man, if I ever get a record deal, I'd sure love to do that song." You have to understand, I mean, for a songwriter, there's no sweeter words that you could ever hear than someone peers actually liking something you had written. And but you have to know, I mean, at the time, we neither one had anything going on. I mean, nothing. I was working at UPS. I was loading boxes at UPS. And Garth was doing construction work and selling boots. So it was pretty obvious we weren't right on the cusp of, breaking it wide open.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you go, I hope you do get that record deal. And, and 3 years later, he did. He stood on the same stage that he sang on that night at the Bluebird and got signed to Capitol Records. And the next day, called for the dance and said, "Is it still available?" And irony of ironies, after all the years of trying to get a song recorded in Nashville, the greatest thing that ever happened to me as a songwriter was to be turned down for all those years, because it wound up with exactly who heard it from the very first time that they ever got a chance to hear it, and to whom it meant something. And he went on to make a record out of it, he and Alan Reynolds, that I would have never conceived. I would have never, I could have been left alone in the studio for years and never have come up with what they did. So it's just one of those events that you were just very grateful you showed up that day. That's about all I can say.
So keep that guitar in your hand. Tech being well, we're going to have a look at a little clip with Garth performing it from the film, and then we'll come back.
The really unique piece of what we do here at the Bluebird Cafe is our audition process. That audition process has been going on since the 80s. Some of the biggest names in country music, songwriters and artists, have come up through that audition process here at the Bluebird Cafe.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above.
I got a call from a woman I knew who said, I've got a young kid from Oklahoma, he's really wanting to make it. I think he's really good. Can we get him on the songwriters audition? And so one of the Sunday auditions, he showed up late, may I add.
And that I didn't know the way it all did.
He passed the audition. He came back and he played one of those showcases we have. He'd already been turned down by all the labels. But for some reason, Lynn Schultz from Capitol Records was here anyway. And that vulnerability, that honesty, that truth that he does made all the difference. And Lynn Schultz grabbed him and said, I think we made a mistake. Come in the kitchen. I want to talk to you. And they signed that deal the next day.
But I'd have had to miss the day.
Incredible. Now, what we don't see in the clip that you'll see in the film once you obviously go and download it after this or over the weekend is that once Garth finishes that line, Tony takes over the vocals and Garth just like tips his head back and just looks in sheer admiration. Now, we don't have that clip tonight, but obviously, as I say, do go and check out the film. So, Tony, would you do me the honor of performing the song for us now?
Sure will, and thank you very much, Kevin. I really appreciate it. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Holding you, now I held everything for a moment. Now wasn't I the king? But if I'd only known the day, our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to the day. Thank you, Mr. Garth.
How do you follow that? How do you follow that? I can see Erika in the bottom was having a proper sing along. How many times have you heard him sing that song? It must be loads, and it still doesn't get old.
It still always makes me cry. I have to look at the ceiling tile just so I can maintain some composure.
Incredible. Honestly, we'll get you to perform again a bit later, but that's incredible. So, Erika, let's move on to the film, which I'm not just saying is brilliant. I went for my fifth watching this morning, just to swat up on it a bit. And even if you don't know about the venue or are not massively into country, and just wanted to watch it as a good music documentary, it delivers, doesn't it? I mean, it's got so many anecdotes and so many stories. Why were you so passionate about putting this film together? Because when you took over the Bluebird, this was always something you wanted to achieve, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And the stories had never been told, and there were some anchor pieces of the Bluebird, like the monthly show that Tony's a part of with Tom Schuyler and Fred Knobloch, the Women in the Round, folks who had been playing there from eons ago, that I wanted everybody to know about how Amy built this place, how it became like, it was almost like the story that Tony was telling about Garth and the dance and how they met, and all of those things that nobody intended, nobody planned, nobody could have orchestrated what happened with the Bluebird. It happened. And Amy Curlin put the pieces in place, but even she had no idea what would take place. What she did have was a belief in the songwriters, and so kept what, as that tide started rolling, held on to that, was true to that. And all of those pieces, I just wanted the world to know about that so they would understand why other newer, more established now, less established now, what the Bluebird meant to all of those people and why. Yeah. So that was important to do ASAP.
And to keep it UK based, some of the dealings and some of sort of the pitching was done when you were over for Country to Country in London a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yes. We, Brian Losciavo and his partner, Jeff Molyneux, Riverside Entertainment, I had met them when they were working for ABC during the television show Nashville run. And so they would come to the Bluebird and do a variety of things. But we ran into each other at the O2 and had dinner, and I was talking to them about wanting to do this film. I had talked to several different people and nobody felt right yet. And so, but I knew that Brian loved the Bluebird and that they had been there and they had a relationship with us already. And so when I was like, well, maybe you guys would like to do that, overnight, Brian created a treatment because, yes, that was what they wanted. And it was the best possible choice. I mean, if you would have seen this room, and Tony was there, so he saw some of that, you'd look down if you were in the round and there was a camera at your ankle. I mean, those guys crawled under the tables, back in the corner. They really understood the room, and the room is very peculiar. It's an unusual space, and it required people to pay attention to it in that way.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the notes I've got down is how you managed to capture the intimacy of the venue on the screen. And I mean, you've obviously just alluded to it there. It just feels like you're actually there. Was that something you worked on, or did you just get the right guys that understood? Or
I mean, it was a conversation that we all had about how this was going to be looked at and how we were going to treat it. And we all said, the important part is how it makes you feel to be at the Bluebird. And it's not just about the stars. I mean, we could have had Garth on stage. I don't think he would have done it that way. I think he's, in it with us for the intention. But it wasn't about that. Even when Taylor agreed to do it, she watched what we had done before she agreed and saw our intention and felt like, I can be a part of this because it's telling a real story. And so I think it was definitely the right people to have that conversation with and to be able to continue to be like, not this, but this. This is where we need to drive this in order to get what we want. Yeah.
And it's a who's who of country in the film, isn't it? I mean, I've just got some written down here. Somebody we've got Maren Morris, Trisha Yearwood, a guy called Garth Brooks, Faith Hill. Tony's in it a bit. You're in it. Steve Earle, Jason Isbell, Vince Gill, Casey Musgraves. I could go on. As you were producing it, it was your baby. Was it easy to get all those great artists and musicians to appear in the film?
Yeah, it really was. Many of them, I mean, easy is a relative word, right?
Yeah.
People were definitely saying yes.
Keen.
Now, whether or not we could fit them in the schedule, some of them, like, we didn't get to put John Prine in and wanted to interview him, but his tour schedule didn't work on our timeline. So there were people that definitely had a relationship. Obviously, Guy Clark, that we were too late, But for the most part, I would say people, when they were given the opportunity to speak about the Bluebird and to represent their relationship with the Bluebird, then they came on board very quickly.
It would have been lovely to get John Prine, especially, wouldn't it? Because the film works brilliantly as a capsule of time, because you go back and then you've got people like Tennille Townes in it, who are obviously very much the future. And if you could have just got John Prine in there, you would have just got the moment perfectly.
And yes, and when I first started waitressing, he was one of my heroes. And so I got to be with him at the waitress station. And that was, I think we all have those moments in Nashville where you're, sitting by Jimmy Buffett on a couch getting takeout, or running into Keith Urban getting a pizza at Whole Foods, where it's just like these people have inspired us to so many things, to bring us to ourselves, that they're superhuman because of what they bring to all of us as our emotion. It's like Tony, when Tony plays the dance at the Bluebird, there's not a dry eye in the house, including all of the staff who have heard it many times. And that kind of cathartic emotion, you don't get everywhere.
Yeah.
You get that at a place where everybody is together and paying attention. And So,
Tony, let's go on to that. Obviously, the dance it's kind of got a double meaning to people depending on how they see it. Do you feel the gravitas and understand the responsibility or meaning that song brings to so many people?
Well, I'm very grateful for the letters and the correspondence that I've received over the years as a result of the song. And I can take it with a little easier, because it was not ever an intention that you said, okay, today we're going to make history. We're going to do this. It was just, as any songwriter does, you wake up on any given morning and you try to write the best thing you can. So I never really thought of it in terms of anything other than I've played it every night since I wrote it. And I've been very grateful. Most of all, and I mean this, for me, the places that it's taken me and the people that it's allowed me to meet and the opportunities that it's afforded me to play with people that, without that song, I don't know if I'd be sitting on the same stage with them. So I've always been grateful for that, and that it has meant something to someone. I'm very grateful for that, but it was never seriously just a bald-faced intent of mine to do that. And one thing about what Erika said about when you mentioned about trying to get those people to come and do this movie, the Bluebird. The Bluebird really signifies one thing above all else, and that is that the song is the star. It's not who's singing it or who wrote it necessarily. It's the song itself. And so everybody can stand on kind of equal footing. If you've got a song that you're really proud of and want to sing, and everybody knows, that's about as high as you can get up the echelon in Nashville, and particularly at Bluebird. If you've got something that everybody wants to hear, you've done your work, and that's great. And the greatest part about the Bluebird, though, to me, is to walk in for an early show, and there's people that you don't know, and I have to look on the little table card and find out who they are, sometimes. But then you'll listen and you go, I know for a fact I'm going to hear that song one of these days and on the radio. And that to me is truly the mystique of the Bluebird, is to know with such a limited toolkit. You got 12 notes and 26 letters. And you'd think we'd run out of combinations at some point, but on any given night, you can walk in there and go, no, they're still cooking up something with the same recipe. So it's amazing. It's an amazing place, and I'm so very grateful to have been some little part of it and to still get to be a part of it.
So, Kevin, can I add something to that?
Of course you can.
What Tony described as coming in for an early show is like an important piece of the Bluebird too. And Tony is a very unique individual in that he spends a lot of time with us, and we're very happy about that. And he represents the supportive atmosphere that Nashville has and that the writers have. Because Tony, you're always so supportive of the young writers, and you'll come in and listen to them, and others do too. But I think you're probably one of the most frequent visitors to come in and listen to young people, and he'll listen to their songs. Whoops, sorry, Tony. You'll probably get a bunch of kids.
I wish I'd have written that. Some nights when I'm not anywhere and nobody knows, I'll not claim it. Who knows?
But that idea of the young writers coming and showing off their stuff, and writers like Tony who are in awe of these younger writers. I mean, that progression is really important to what we do. And Tony, I appreciate you always being a part of keeping that going.
It's like I said, it's at once, it's very humbling and also very inspiring. I mean,
yeah.
I think the craziest part about it is to think you've learned all there is to know about any business. I don't care what you're talking about. So as Mark Twain said, youth is wasted on the young. And it's proven when you go to these early shows and you see these people and they go, I certainly wasn't thinking like that at 18 or 19 or 20 or 21. It took me a long time to ever have a thought that good. So it's inspiring.
So I had a route I thought this was going to go, but off the back of it, let's scratch that. So if you're going in for an early show and you're looking to be wowed by a new songwriter, what are you looking for?
Well, I give, talks from time to time, and I tell people, the best thing that could happen to you as a songwriter is you get a song recorded. And the worst thing that could happen to you as a songwriter is you get a song recorded. So it's up to you to make the decision. What is it you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, a hit that brings in a lot of cash, that's all well and good, and nobody's going to deny that. But really if I look back at the songs that ultimately changed my life, I don't know that anybody knew there were big hits at the time. Some of them weren't hits at all. But it's just that they speak to you. The hardest part about songwriting, Kevin, I think, is, as I said, with that limited toolbox that you have to work with, is to tell a story. What makes a song universal really is the fact that everybody already knows the punchline. They already know how the story goes. What the secret is of great songwriting is telling it to them in a way they've never heard. And that's the essence of it to me. And, so many great songs that have come down the pike that you go, I don't know that the idea itself is so monumental, but the approach they took to deliver it, that's what really makes it stand out. I mean, I don't know that, that you can't go home again. I don't know that that's such a novel thought, but told as the house that built me. Well, now you got yourself something. And I'm sure, and then there again, that song took forever to find the right home. It also speaks to a great song is the fact that it doesn't have a time period. It's not, okay, this will work during this particular set of years. It doesn't really have a time stamp on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered off the Taylor Swift moment. I was going to show it, but I feel like we've this is going on so much of a different stratosphere than I'm happy to go with it. So, but we've got to talk about maybe the elephant in the room. We'll go on to the Nashville TV series because there's a bunch of stuff on that, isn't there? There's a beautiful moment that we're going to take a little look at in the film where the cast reunite. Now, I've got to be really careful because whenever I talk about the Nashville show, I accidentally ruin it for people that haven't watched it. Now, I've never done it live, but I have done it talking to a band that, like, during quarantine, he was halfway through watching it, and it ruins the entire series. So let's have a look at that clip. And then I've got questions for both of you on the impact of the show, both from running a venue and the type of people it brings listening to your music. So this is most of the cast of Nashville. This is a life that's good. Enjoy this. This is a beautiful clip.
Sitting here tonight by the firelight, it reminds me I already have more than I should.
Bluebird was really the centerpiece of the show, I think, because it was so important to us on this show to really have the show be about the songwriters and to be about the ground of where this music comes from.
Two arms around me, heaven to ground me, and a family that always calls me home. 4 wheels to get there, enough love to share, and a sweet, sweet, sweet song.
We were so lucky to have this cast of actors who were also musicians and songwriters who came to the Bluebird, learned about what we did, integrated into what we did as part of the songwriting community, and then took what they found from us and brought it back out to television.
Little cameo from you there, Erika. Lovely. Cool. Okay, so let's move on to the Nashville TV series, which I know when we've spoke before, Erika did things for the Bluebird that I can't imagine you could ever imagine or anyone could ever imagine. I mean, it took what was a respected songwriters venue and then threw it into the stratosphere and then made it arguably as big as the cast, or if not bigger than the actual cast. How was that to deal with?
Oh, well, it's you can see it in the movie when you watch it, what that tidal wave happened for us. Because, as you say, the Bluebird was a cast member, and so it was hunted down by paparazzi like any good star. And people just wanted to be in the room. They didn't know what we did many times because the television show represented us a little bit differently. And the thing that, and I think I said this to you before, it was like being hit with a tidal wave. We were always trying to find the best way to do it in a respectful way to our audience and in a way that our new audience would understand. And I think that the staff here would all tell you that the gratitude we had was when people would come in and be like, oh my God, this is it? What? What is this place? And they would walk out as changed people. They would be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what to expect. And I have never heard music like this before. This is the greatest thing. So that was our opportunity with all of the stuff that happened. And so we're grateful for that. And for the ability to showcase songwriters to many folks who had no idea what songwriters did or the kind of work that they did or the craft they brought.
So there's a question from Roy, which is a really good question, actually. Is there still a Nashville TV effect to the Bluebird audience?
Do you want to answer that, Tony?
What's that now? I didn't quite hear you, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Is there still a Nashville TV effect to the Bluebird audience? Like, do you still feel like they're there?
Well, the last time we played there, I mean, obviously it's brought an interest that is far more ranging than just coming to see songwriters. I mean, it's venue itself has been so displayed, and so I think there's that element of it. But I think some people, once they get inside, like Erika said, no, it's not like the TV show. Start with the fact that, you know, I'm not quite as good at looking as Charles Dexter. Let's just start there. But I was noticing how much we have in common. I have a guitar too. And, but no, I mean, it's like one of those things that even the stars on the show, it was all about, they still made it all about the songwriter. So I think the folks that would come there expecting the TV series would leave, as Erika said, realizing that's why there was a TV series. Because it was a club that featured songwriters of all things, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we still are seeing folks who have put it on their bucket list to come to the Bluebird as a result of the television show. It's really hard to say now, though, since we've been closed for 5 months, what, as we get further out, how that's going to hit us.
Yeah. So, question for you, Tony, that moves on quite well. Obviously, as we've mentioned, the TV show brought lots of attention to the venue. As a songwriter, who your main goal is to get your music heard, and as you're such a big advocate of songwriters, is it welcome attention? As I guess, it's brought people that have never probably been to the venue and obviously didn't understand it from watching the TV show. Is all audience good audience?
The only thing that was ever upsetting about it was the fact that there were some regulars that used to have some hard times getting, seats at the place.
Yeah.
The more exposure you can, obviously, the more exposure you can get. You don't have to win everybody over, but if you can win a few converts, if you win a few people that maybe look at when they turn on the radio, they hear it a little differently because they go, I saw the person who wrote that song play, while I was in Nashville.
Yeah,
that really is an education unto itself. That's not something you're going to get necessarily paying a concert ticket and going and seeing a band, which is great. But I mean, you're going to see the band at the Bluebird. You're going to hear the song, and so it's just a different thing. But we were very taken aback some nights at how many people were there to see us. They were there to be at the Bluebird, but we were grateful to have them all. So, and like I said, if you leave with a few people thinking differently about it, that's great.
Yeah. So I'm conscious we're getting on for time, but if you'd be happy to pick another song, Tony, and then I've got a couple of more off-grid questions afterwards, if you'd be happy to perform again.
Sure. I mean, whatever you need me to do. You mentioned a young lady. I have two daughters. Jamie and I have two beautiful daughters, Katie and Allison, and they've turned us on to so much great music over the years that we would have never listened to. It was really neat to have this song be recorded by somebody everybody loves, no matter what their age. And her name is Dolly Parton. It's the only time I was ever cool with them was when Dolly recorded one of the songs. Break us down a high yellow mountains, and you might think he fade. We're not copper for 1 penny ore, even iron for 1 day. And $1 would be plenty to buy 20 of us, until true love gets added by these handfuls of dust. A handful of dust, darling, a handful of dust. It pretty well sums up the richest and the poorest of us. But true love makes priceless the worthless. Whenever it is added to these handfuls of dust. Well, however small though our worth may be, when shared between two hearts, becomes ever more than it will ever be, measured on its own part. And our half what it could be is now twice what it was, because true love got added to these handfuls of dust. A handful of dust, darling, a handful of dust. It pretty well sums up the bit.
I don't know what I like more, you performing or Erika dancing off screen in the background. It's really close.
Good. Musicians can't dance, so that's good. Somebody in the room can.
You got any really rocky ones you can smash out with an acoustic guitar so I can just watch us start head tapping?
I see this, yeah.
So, as I said, let's start winding up. So let's put this out to the both of you. And Erika, I've got a story I hope you're going to pick up from this one, because I love it. I think you'll get it when I ask the question. Do you both have one moment each that stands out from your time managing or performing at the venue? And I'm thinking of Willie Nelson, Erika, just in case you weren't on the same line. I want to see how you diplomatically word this.
We were very lucky to have Chris Christopherson and Willie Nelson perform as part of an award that Chris gave to Willie. And they're such good friends. It was amazing to be around the two of them together and to hear them cut up together and tell stories. But I think the story you're talking about was I was out front trying to manage the crowd, and Willie's tour manager came to me and said, "Oh, Willie wants to see you on the bus." I'm like, okay, I'll do that. On the bus. And there's Willie sitting at the table on the bus with a bowl of cereal, checks, a few checks floating in the bowl of cereal, in an undershirt with, a hand-rolled cigarette. Let's just put it that way. And he took a big hit, and he looked up at me and he said, "Erika, why am I here?" And the flash through my head as a philosophy major, the best way to answer that question. But I said, "No, you're getting an award from Chris." He's like, "Oh, I thought I was giving Chris an award."
I love that story so much.
That picture, yes.
That's great.
Tony, do you have anything that stands out for you? I mean, it doesn't have to be as crazy.
Oh, gosh. No. I mean, I think, another night that, I think typifies the Bluebird, and I guess that's when you really realized that this was a completely different atmosphere than you were used to. And there's another Oklahoma boy by the name of Vince Gill. I got to do a show with him one night at the Bluebird, and I'll always remember. I think he parked out front, and he just walked in through the front door carrying his own guitar. And this is royalty when you're talking about stars and stuff like that. But he never has behaved like that, and he just showed up as a songwriter, and took his seat, and that was that. And everybody who was in the round with him, I'm sure there was a moment of trepidation. It's like, my God, the guy can play better than anybody here, and sing better, and write better. It's like, take your pick. But that night, as most nights in the Bluebird, everybody's just there to hear the other person's song, and you want to play your best. And I think that night will always stand out to me, just in terms of I don't know how or why. Like Willie said, "Why am I here?" I probably had that same thought. It was a good lesson.
So, when you're in the round with everyone, am I right in thinking it's very much a level playing field? Like, you could have had a bunch of hits, or this could be your first time, and maybe you've got a song dropping in a couple of months. Is everyone on the same page?
Yeah, and I think that invariably people are always waiting when somebody introduces it. You mind if I do something new? Because that's really the essence of the whole shebang. What have you done for me lately? It's like, well, you got something new, and everybody wants to do that, and everybody listens a little differently. I mean, they can all sing along with the hits, but boy, when somebody takes the chance of saying, "Here's one nobody knows," but I hope someday somebody knows it. But I've never experienced anybody thinking they were anything more than another songwriter. If anything, if there's any competition, it's the only people you really compete. You really want whoever's sitting across from you or in the round to maybe listen intently and like what they hear. That's the only competition. Really.
Like a mutual respect.
Yeah.
What one you can both? Yeah, get both of you. What one piece of advice would you give to any aspiring songwriter? Yes, a thinking one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the best advice, and I'm very serious, was given to me when we first moved here. And I paid to go to one of these confabs where people speak and throughout the day from the world and everything. So I was getting more and more confused as to which was the best path to go to become successful in this town, if at all. And I was so confused and I was so distraught, thinking, what have I done moving my, Jamie and I here? I had no clue. And leave it to a songwriter to step up to the microphone and straighten everything out. And it was Dave Loggins, who, of course, wrote "Please Come to Boston" among many other hits. And Dave walked up to the microphone, and his entire speech, he walked up and said, "Write something you're proud of." And that was it. He sat down. That was the entire speech that he gave. But I felt like I had gotten what I came to hear. And I don't know that every songwriter always hits that mark, but that's certainly a good target to shoot for, is to have something that if you do hear it again on the radio, you're not going to wince and go, yeah, I wrote that. You're going to go, yeah, I wrote that. That's the goal. And even if they're not recorded, just to be able to sit in around at the Bluebird and play something that you can't wait for other people to hear, that you just enjoy singing. That's the essence of it.
Erika, do you want to try and follow on from that?
Oh, sure. I mean, from my perspective, it's be dedicated and have patience, because I see a lot of people who have expectations that they're going to get somewhere quickly. And you may be in your town and in your family well loved. But when you really, as Tony said, when you're writing something you're proud of that has staying power, it sometimes takes a long time. And it's not going to happen right away. And if you don't have that ability to sort of feed yourself and fill yourself with community in order to have staying power, then it's going to be a hard road. But if you set out, and as Tony was actually saying, this made me think of it, is they're not all going to be those songs, but you have to write all those other songs to get to the ones that you're going to be proud of. You can't just get the one you're proud of. You have to, it's a process. And if you don't give yourself the leeway to make mistakes and to write crappy songs, then you won't get the really good ones. And so it's patience too, I think, and dedication.
What does songwriting mean to you, Tony? Talk to me about the importance of words to music.
Well, it's a wonderful pursuit insofar as the fact that you don't really have to have anybody, to say it's okay to do this. You can just pick up your guitar or sit at the piano and compose. And it's always been a friend to me. When we moved down to Tybee, I didn't know anybody, and so my guitar and my record collection was it was just a great friend, and it has been my whole life. And I know for a fact, you've heard so many great songs, and they are time markers, and that's what it's meant to me. I mean, you can hear it, and you're right back where you were the first time you heard it, or who you were with, and it's just it's an art form that is kind of open to anybody, because what you're writing about is to everybody. So it doesn't necessarily take genius, obviously, and it just takes the want to convey something to another person in this particular medium, which is, notes and words. But I can't imagine. What scares me is the thought of it not being there. I'm talking about music in general, songs, that's just, I can't even conceive of that. And throughout this trying time that everyone has experienced, I can assure you it's been songs that have, and music that have kept me going and a reminder that, better days will come and we'll get through this. So it's everything. And it's also something very simple as well. Not necessarily, like I said, you don't have to change the world every time you sit down, but you can change your little world insofar as just enjoying the time and the peace that you in writing.
Erika, I'm going to interject and turn the question back at you. Tony just mentioned that it's not genius. Now, obviously, that's quite an ambiguous word, but do you not think the ability to make a song that can appeal to so many people, or just people can relate to in various different circumstances? I think to not call that, a form of genius is, a little discrediting to a songwriter.
Huh.
I like getting you with these. What she's trying to dodge, Kevin, is the fact she knows me and she knows damn well I ain't no genius. So there you have it. So
what's exactly it? No, inspired. But I think if you put the word genius on it, you start putting limitations on somebody who may be an amazing songwriter but doesn't feel like a genius.
Yeah. Okay.
It really is that ability to take in and feel it and then put it back out. And I think people would say that it appears genius because it's simple and challenging at the same time. But, it's inspired. I would use that word.
Diplomatic.
Listen, I gotta tell you this real quick. I'm very serious about this. I've got to tell you this. So you talk about diplomatic. My mom was the greatest person that ever walked this earth. I mean, she was just, and she's the other reason I made it into songwriting. And but I'll never forget the very first time I played the dance for her. And I mean, this was she's ultimate hero. And she patted my hand. And she looked at me and she said, "I never thought you were that deep." And, I know what she meant, but it was hilarious to me to hear my mom. I know what she was trying to convey, but anyway, so it's just one of my favorite stories about songwriting because I think it succeeded in putting me in my place. It's like don't get above your raisin here. So.
You might be good, but you're not that good.
That's right, absolutely.
So. Assuming you both keep up to date, as obviously do with current songwriters and things that are coming out, who are you both really enjoying at the moment?
Well, one of them is a resident. I mean, I'm a big fan. There again, my daughters, Katie and Allison, turned me on to Jason Isbell some years ago, and we saw him at the Ryman. We went to see him there, and I mean, he's got a rock band, but it's a hard thing to pull off. All his lyrics are just fierce; they're just amazing, and the storytelling is just incredible. I also really appreciated the first time I saw him is how he just talked to the audience. It was, I don't know, it was like you were in a bar. I mean, it wasn't. This is a huge venue and probably the most notable, in the South. But he was just so engaging with the audience, and he's just a great writer. He just truly is. damn him. But it's so there's no shortage of inspiration out there, I'm afraid.
It is true. It is true. Well, I would add to Neil Towns, who I love dearly.
You know I love her. I think she's incredible.
She's incredible. And she's one of those people that we heard in an early show long ago, several years ago, and she just stopped everybody. Even some of the curmudgeon people who are at the Bluebird, who, you know, are like, show me what you got, was her. And then I really like Black Like Me, that new release, and just the way that captures a spirit of what we're all going through right now. And that is a hard thing to write about, I think, in a way that is has real heart and soul and an explanation of a situation from a personal perspective. And I thought that was a brave song for her to write. That's
got a ballsy attitude that I think more people in country could get on board with. I'll say it. You don't have to.
I love a lot of songs.
It's fine. I'm in the UK. I'm out the way. I can say it. It's fine. But yeah, no, absolutely. So let's start closing off. Do you have, Tony, one more song in you before we go?
Oh, sure. I mean,
Here I Am, maybe?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you so very much for having me, Kevin. And Erika, it's good to see you. This is a song, again, that was turned down over and over and over again, but it finally wound up with exactly who should have done it. And it's one of my all-time favorite artists ever, and one of my favorite people. It's Patty Loveless. It's a song called Here I Am. Don't do it, darling. Don't you dare look in there. You said you didn't want to see me, but you've been looking for me everywhere. You know that you're gonna find me if you keep on drinking fast. 'Cause honey, I'm right there waiting on you at the bottom of your glass. And here I am. Here I am. I'm in the bourbon and the water, burn you just like a brand. Here I am. It ain't working, my darling, as hard as you may try. You keep hearing those words you told me in every man's goodbye. You know that you're just one step from another one being gone. I know I've seen them all unravel, 'cause I've been watching you all along. And here I am. Here I am. I'm in every lie you're hearing that burn you just like a brand. Here I am.
So the Bluebird UK digital release is out now. It's about 85 minutes. It's honestly such a good film. I had more clips to show you, but I mean, I'm sure you'd rather listen to Erika and and Tony, or just Tony. It's got some really cool bits. It's got Shane McAnally in talking as well. You get to hear about the sort of the lavatorial and plumbing problems they have, which is quite funny, but also a bit tragic in the same way. You get to see Taylor Swift perform Better Man, which, if you didn't know, she wrote for Little Big Town. That's an incredible scene. Tony's in it singing alongside Garth Brooks, which is a brilliant bit. There's so much good stuff in it. So it's on Amazon Prime. It's on Sky. I think it's on Virgin Media. It's pretty much everywhere. And if you don't have any of those, I think if you go to the Bluebird page, You can email and get a region-free copy of the DVD sent as well if you'd rather keep it. Such a good film. I'm not just saying that. Thank you to both of you. Thank you for watching. If anyone's just come onto this late, it's on YouTube. And it will be on the Total Country Podcast Facebook page in full, like all 4 hours of it, as it is now. Basically. But it's been a pleasure. I'm going to close out with the final trailer. If you two are cool to just stick here, as I said, I'd love to have a little quick chat afterwards.
Sure.
Thanks to everybody for listening.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I don't think that there's an artist that I know that doesn't have a Bluebird story.
Whether you're the biggest songwriter in Nashville or someone that's been there for a week, it's an equal playing field.
If you had a discography of all the songs that got played in here, I bet it would just be staggering.
We got it on at your jungle room.
My first time coming with Bluebird, I go, this can't be it.
You just pull up and it's like next to a dry cleaner. You're like, am I in the right place? All walks of life inspired to come here and tell their story.
It's that step in the journey, and I'm proud that the Bluebird was one of those steps for me.
Being in that room can change your life, as it did mine.
Oh, I can hear singing, keep on dreaming, even if it breaks your heart.
There we go. What an interview. And Tony performing live. Wow. As I said at the end there, Bluebird, an accidental landmark that changed music history, is out now in the UK digitally. And do contact the venue direct if you wish to pick up a hard copy of the film, and the team there will be really happy to sort that out for you. Of course, I want to send my thanks to everyone at the Bluebird Cafe for promoting this, and of course Tony Arata for giving up his time also. If you like the show, please do like, follow, subscribe, review, comment, etc. in all the usual podcasting places. It really does massively help. And if you want to follow us on the socials, we're pretty much everywhere. It's always at the Total Country Podcast. If you want to contact the show, please do pop me an email. It's totalcountrypod@gmail.com. But that's all for now. Hopefully you'll join me next time. But for now, that's it. I'll see you next time. Same place. I've been Kevin. You've been great. Keep it safe. Keep it country. Bye for now.